like the things that Black people in America identify with, I realized that I was like teaching myself about it. Like it wasn't like it was my own personal experience. Of course it was. Like my daddy is still from here,
Yeah.
but my dad's not here anymore. Everything that I knew about that culture was from me trying to study him, study where he came from. But my mom is alive and breathing right now. She's here with me. And all the things that she teaches me, everything is all Senegalese. I'm Tukulor, I'm Sere, and I'm Bambara. Those are the ethnic groups of my bloodline. I really understand myself as a human being. I want to build up my own legacy personally as Nabou Ramu. So when they look me up in the history books, it's Nabou Ramu, not that reporter who worked for CNN or whatever.
Welcome to Pinnacle Code, where we empower second and 1.5 generation Black Americans. I'm your host, Ben Arthur. Super excited to be joined this week by Nabou Ramu. She is a Senegalese-American who finds her purpose as an Afrocentric journalist. Her work has been featured in the likes of Essence, Blavity, and the Tennessean of the USA Today network, where we were colleagues a few years back, based out of Nashville. Without any further ado, let's go. Senegalese roots kind of in your blood, so it's your mom who is from Senegal, or how does all that work?
Yes, my mother is born and raised in Senegal, Dakar area. She kind of moved around a lot in her childhood because my grandfather was a captain in the army, and so she moved from like military base to military base. But yeah, Senegal.
Got it. And so your name, is that Senegalese, Nabou Ramu? Like, does that have roots in Senegal? And it looks like it does. So what does that mean, maybe in the culture?
So my full name is actually Seynabou.
Seynabou, okay.
So I might have introduced you when we first met as just Seyna.
It was Seyna at first, yeah.
Yes, but it's the full name is Seynabou altogether. And so like when I'm in corporate settings or when I was in school growing up, I just felt a lot more comfortable with them saying Seyna because it just sounded a lot more Eurocentric, like it wasn't too hard to pronounce. But then when I got to college and as I become an adult, I've just grown more into Nabou. And Nabou and Seyna are the traditional nicknames for Seynabou. Like if you meet anybody named Nabou, they're like, oh, Seynabou. Like it's known.
Got it. So
but Ramu, I'm sorry, but Ramu
oh no, go ahead.
Is not Senegalese.
Okay.
My father, he's Black American from Los Angeles, and he just was very Afrocentric, and so in the 70s, he had changed his name to Kamal Ramu, and so that's where I got the Ramu from my father.
Got it. And so to kind of go back, you said growing up, you would just have people call you Seyna because you just felt maybe more comfortable, or you use the word kind of Eurocentric. I mean, now, regardless of who, whether it's corporate setting or whatever, do you just say Seynabou or Nabou, just maybe just kind of what your name is instead of maybe assimilating in regards to like kind of maybe the Americanized version of what your name is?
That's a good question. So recently this year, I'll say since I started writing for Essence, I've changed my byline from Seyna Clark to Nabou Ramu. And then my email signature now says Seynabou Ramu Clark. And I just had a conversation with one of my mentors who works for NBC. And he was telling me, like, you need to choose one. Are you going to be Seyna or are you going to be Nabou? But you can't be having 3 names in your resume. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
So what made you just stick with Nabou?
It's cute. And all my friends call me Nabou. Nobody really calls me Seyna anymore except for, it used to be the other way around. My family used to call me Nabou and all my friends call me Seyna, and then that was the other way around. But as I think about where I want to be in my career, I don't really see myself as just like a typical reporter, typical journalist, like whose career is driven by whatever company they work for. For me, it's like I want to build up my own legacy personally as Nabou Ramu. So when they look me up in the history books, it's Nabou Ramu, not that reporter who worked for CNN or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I
Okay.
was thinking about how I was going to curate a brand, a legacy, and a good like pen name. And Nabou Ramu is that.
Got it. You speak of brand and legacy, so clearly you have really big aspirations for what you want to be known for, known as. What exactly is that vision through your work? I know a lot of your work is focused on Black culture. I guess what exactly is that goal for you?
See, this is where the Africanness comes in, right?
Mm.
Because in America, we're so open about talking about our goals. But in Senegalese culture, you're supposed to shut up and don't tell anybody anything because of
Mm.
evil eye, because you don't want to get cursed, because all these things. And so I always like, we're asked these questions and we answer them openly. But I always hear my mom in the back of my head, like, don't tell anybody what you're working on. Like, you don't want bad luck. Like, you don't want
Mm.
the spirits to hear it and it doesn't happen.
Mm.
Because in
Oh.
our bloodline, we can't talk like that. Like other people probably can, but it's based on like our ancestors, and so that's not really answering your question.
No, I got it. I got it. So, well, I guess another way to kind of say that. So, but in your head, you know where you're headed, right? And you know how you want people to feel about the work you're doing, correct? Like you at least you don't have to tell me, but do you have a clear vision of kind of what that is?
Yes, I feel like I know what my calling is, like why I was incarnated onto earth during this particular time. I think I know that I'm supposed to be a memory worker on both sides of it, whether that be a reporter actively investigating or being a journalist and archiving and preserving history in the present moment, but then also being an archivist on the back end and reaching back through like the threads of the fabrics of our world and helping people just understand like who they are and why we are this way for future generations to be able to learn from. And so yeah, that's my duty.
When you look back at your upbringing, and I know you're from South Central LA, so and you spoke about your mom and just kind of just keeping kind of those maybe those visions and whatnot inside you and for yourself. But how when you look at back at your upbringing, how did maybe your Senegalese heritage impact your upbringing in LA?
That's a really good question. I think that um I was a sheltered child. Like my mom wouldn't let me do anything. And so I used to get a lot of trouble because I would go out and do it anyways. But my mom wouldn't let me do anything because she was like not from this country. So it's like, no, you can't go to homecoming because I don't know what a homecoming is. I remember like when High School Musical came out and everyone's talking about it, I want to watch it. She's like, it's for high schoolers. You're not in high school. Like, I'm like, no, it's not. Bro, I feel like I paved the way for my younger siblings. Like, she didn't want me to go to prom because one of her friends told her what happens at prom. Like, every little thing. Or it would be like small things like, I can't go outside between 4 and 6 o'clock because that's when the jinns are outside and you don't want to get like, and jinns are like other spirits that live on earth with us that aren't human. And in Senegal, like nobody is really walking around during that time if they can help it. And so just growing up with like this type of influence like at home, It was really hard. I would say me and my mom didn't really get along when
Mm.
I was growing up because I just felt like she didn't understand me. But really, I just didn't understand her.
Mm.
You know, I felt like my dad understood me better, but really, he was just American. I'm growing up in America. And
Yeah.
so that was just the reason why we connected, I think. But I know my friends would come over sometimes. My mom would cook for them, and they still talk about my mom's cooking. Like,
Mm.
I think it's easier in South Central to be Senegalese because, oh, I didn't even mention my mom growing up. She had like a lot of Senegalese friends. Like, they all had like came here at the same time. One of them, she even flew on the airplane with on her way here.
Mm.
And so up until like middle school, I was really only around Senegalese people, like going to all the Gentes, which is like a baby shower. My mom was a hair braider, so I was always in the shop
Mm.
every weekend with her. Like, and so to me, like the most beautiful women that I knew were all like these super long, tall, dark skinned women who did hair, celebrity hair. Like, we was hanging out with Brandy, you
Oh,
know.
shoot.
Yeah, my mom and her friends was doing Brandy's hair, and like they had all these stories, you know, all the time. And so that was like my life. It always smelled like incense. We're always praying, like, and I think that really shaped like my beauty standards and like how I moved around LA. There was like a restaurant off of next to the Crenshaw Mall in LA. It was a Senegalese restaurant. We would always hang out there.
Mm.
Um, and then also growing up in Leimert Park, which is like Africa Town. It's a mixture of like all the different African cultures and Caribbean cultures and Black American cultures in one little melting pot. And so, and there's lots of Muslims there. So that's another part of being Senegalese, is being Muslim. And
Mhm.
it felt normal. Actually, like I didn't feel like I was a, a sore thumb, you know, sticking out. Like, I felt like I was at home because I was only surrounded by people who really understood what it meant to be Senegalese-American.
So it sounds like there are a lot of things kind of going on there, right? Like in one respect, you felt like your mom didn't really understand you, and that maybe you could connect more with your dad because of the fact that he was American and you're growing up in an American environment. But there were so many like Senegalese touch points, it sounds like, whether you're at home or at the Senegalese restaurant you mentioned. Um, at what point did you maybe stop struggling with that sense of identity and maybe grasp all of that simultaneously, if that makes sense? Or is that maybe still a process for you to this day?
I feel like it's still a process for me to this day. I think I'm like unpacking everything because when I talk about hanging around all the Senegalese people, that was like from the time I was born up until I would say like elementary school, middle school, like right before I went to middle school.
Okay, so very young.
So I was very young. So of course at that time I didn't have any issues with my mama. Like, I
Yeah.
loved her. I'm around all her friends. That was normal for me. But it wasn't until, you know, I'm exposed to other parts of American culture in middle school and high school, really just high school the most, that I really felt like we were butting heads. Now, like, my mom is like my best friend. I talk to her a billion times a day. And she taught me how to cook over the phone. You know, she
Mm.
teaches me how to pray over the phone. Like, a lot of our Senegalese culture, I think, is like constantly being like instilled in me. But she doesn't like do it like, oh, you're Senegalese, you need to know this. She just like, oh, I see what you might need in your adult life. This is
Mm.
the advice I have to offer. But all of her advice is rooted in her being Senegalese, if that makes sense.
At what point did that shift start to happen, right? Because you say middle school, high school is when that tension started to grow, and now sounds like you guys have a beautiful relationship. So what was the change that happened between those two things?
My daddy died.
Mm.
I think that's really what brought me and my mom closer. And then I had no choice but to bond with her because she's the only parent I have left. And I felt like obligated to talk to her because I realized how precious time was. And then also she always tells us like the importance of your mom, like why you have to respect your mom, what Allah says about respecting your mom, and like, yeah. I just think that she always tells us that like whatever your mom says is gonna be blessed. So just like listen to me. And so I just started listening to her more, and I'm like, well, my way is not working, so maybe I will take your relationship advice or your cooking advice or your advice on just how to live. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Back to your upbringing a little bit. I read a story that you did in, I don't remember the outlet, but you were talking about your experience at the boarding school in Mississippi, the Piney Woods School, one of, if not the only, one of very few Black boarding schools that still exist in the U.S. And um, you mentioned how, I mean, basically in that story, you talked about how your dad sent you there because you got kicked out of high school in LA. And uh, you said that if it wasn't for that, you would either be probably in the streets of LA or you'd be in Senegal with your family. I guess what led to you getting kicked out of high school, and why was it so bad that you felt like you were either going to be in Senegal or just running the streets of LA?
Yeah. I wish I never put that I got kicked because I do not want that to be my image. But it's the truth. It really
Yeah.
happened. I say that because that's what my dad told me. Like when I had got arrested and when
Mm.
he picked me up from the police station, he was like, "Do you want to go to Senegal? You will go to Senegal, like right now." And I was like, "You're lying." He was like so serious. And so that wasn't like a theory. Like that was what was proposed to
That was
me.
real life.
That
Yeah.
was real life. And I always think like, what type of teenager would I have become if I went to Piney Woods? I don't think I would have been a journalist. I'll say that. Because journalism came from the Piney Woods School. But yeah, or I'll say I'll be in LA. Like all my friends in LA, they still there, still on the same stuff. Like
Mm.
the girls I was hanging around, still doing the same stuff, you know?
Mm.
So I feel like I would probably be with them because I was thinking about this week actually, like how many of my friends go to like these HBCUs or like these really like prestigious schools. I was like, damn, I didn't even know any of these schools even existed until I went to Piney Woods. Like
Mm.
I was thinking only college I knew about was USC and then UCLA because they was like the rival school.
Rivals. Yeah.
Yeah, like I didn't know about Spelman College or Jackson State or any of these HBCUs. I definitely would have got pregnant earlier.
Mm.
But one of my best friends, she got pregnant when we were 15 or
Mm.
16. And I think that was like the catalyst for my parents like sending me to boarding school. They was like, oh no, you're not gonna be like her. Like, you gotta get up out of here.
Yeah.
I got kicked out of school because I used to like ditch and go hang out with my friends, and I used to get into arguments, and I got into a few fights. So
Mm.
yeah.
What was it? You mentioned that you probably wouldn't be in journalism if it wasn't for Piney Woods. What was it about the culture there, the environment there, that changed your outlook or your approach on what it sounds like, kind of everything, how you look at your life and how you carry yourself?
Piney Woods was so strict. Like, I couldn't just like leave because I didn't want to be there. Versus like when I was in public school, if I didn't want to be there, if I felt like my class was challenging, I would start walking the hallways, probably go smoke with my friends, like go hop the gate, get on the bus or the train and get into the neighborhood. It's like go to the mall, anything. But at Piney Woods, like, bro, first of all, they make fun of you if you don't have good grades. Like, I felt like they would talk about you, like, oh, Jayla got all C's, like, she can't go to rec. She got to stay in the dorms. And so you're like almost competing with your classmates. And I think that just everybody carried themselves so differently at Piney Woods. Like, I feel like it was one of those like Black elitist type of schools, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like coming from the hood and going there, it was just different. Like we had to go to church. I feel like that played a major role as well. Like at that time, I believed in God, but I didn't really understand spirit or God at that point. So it's not like I heard anything that was so profound that changed my life at that point. But I think it was just like this strict schedule. Like you don't have time to do nothing else. Like we waking up at 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. to be in the cafeteria by 7, you know, and then we got morning devotion, and then we got class. And then if it's on Wednesday, we might have chapel in the middle of the day. Like, then we have more class and then sports afterwards. And then some of us had night classes to try to graduate. Like I had a night computer typing class. So I'm like just busy. And then after that, we get back to the dorm and we got study hour, and you have to be quiet, mandatory study hour up until like 9 p.m. And then lights out in your dorm by 10 p.m. You don't got time to do no, like, even though we did do some crazy stuff, but it was on the weekends and we never got caught.
You still got it out there, huh?
Definitely. And I think also when I was in public school, I didn't understand that I was in school to graduate from high school. Like it didn't click until I got to Piney Woods and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be graduating high school. I need to get my grades together. Like, I want to graduate on time. And so I started getting like mostly A's. And that was like so crazy to me because I didn't have grades like that in public school. I wasn't at school to get those grades, you know? And so, yeah, it just, and then the way we was like rewarded, the incentives, like we get to travel around the country, like it was just, it really, it wasn't hard to like fit into the standards because I really was a good girl. I just was a follower at that time. Like whatever my friends was doing, I was doing.
Yeah, I think your whole experience at Piney Wood, I mean, that just speaks to the power of like environment, like the environments we're in, right? How has the way you've looked at your kind of Senegalese-American identity changed over time, right? Because now, I mean, very outwardly and just from like watching you on social media and whatnot, it seems like at least on social media, you're embracing, being Muslim and your kind of your garb and your Senegalese heritage more. At least you're putting it out there more, right? And so, I mean, that's kind of different from Sana I knew at the Tennessean. And so I'm wondering, is that maybe been part of your evolution of how you've looked at your identity, your cultural identity, and how it's transformed over time?
Yes, like number one, I hate when everybody try to be like me. And I've experienced like girls that just look up to me and try to be like me. And so once I notice that people start copying me, I'm like quick to switch it up. Like, it's time for me to do something new. And I think that's what made me like realize like, oh, I don't have to worry about like diving into this identity of being an archivist and like obsession with like Los Angeles culture and being this like earthy Afrocentric Erykah Badu type of girl. Like, that's me. But I just felt like so many girls are just like pick that identity, you know, in their lifetime. And I sat down one day and I was like, you know, you're also Senegalese. Like, you have like so much more that you can tap into. You know, like, you have your own culture that a lot of people in your neighborhood don't have to like gravitate towards, because I'm an artist as well, like outside of being a reporter. And so it's like, I just felt like everybody was starting to be like on the same artistic wavelength. Or maybe I just know all these people because I'm on that wave. But I just was like, I just want to embrace my own culture. You know, like I remember posting like, sometimes like we live in this double consciousness, like this duality of being Black in America. But I realized like all the things I was obsessed with, like church culture or like granny's house and like these wooden walls with picture frames everywhere and like these lace curtains, like all like the things that Black people in America identify with, like growing up in the South and slavery and Jim Crow and all these different things. Like, I realized that I was like teaching myself about it. Like, it wasn't like it was my own personal experience. Like, of course it was, like my daddy is still from here, but my dad's not here anymore. And so like everything that I knew about that culture was from me trying to study him and study where he came from. But my mom is alive and breathing right now, and she's here with me, and all the things that she teaches me, everything is all Senegalese. Like, when I'm home, she's not making any American food at all. Like, she's only making Senegalese food. Even her snack, she's making these little beignets. Like, you know, I'm going to Atlanta to find an African grocery store so I could be able to put dry fish in my suitcase with ice to be able to bring back to her so she could cook something. Like, those are my realities.
Yeah,
You know,
that's real West African. Yeah,
for real. And I'm like, we're sending money to Senegal every day. Or like we when I talk to her on the phone, like, I don't think she's talking about prayer. Like, make sure you're playing the Ayatul Kursi. Make sure you learn Surat Baqarah. Like, make sure you are praying all day. I just felt like as I grew in my spirituality, I just started to align myself with Islam more, because I'm like, that is my mom's religion. Like, that's the religion my grandma prays for me. And especially, we just sent my grandma to Mecca last year for Hajj.
Wow.
Like,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
that was a really big deal in our family, you know? Or like, I have land in Senegal. Like, if I ever wanted to move to Senegal, I could, you know? And everyone always talks about their parents building a house for like 20 years. Like, that's our reality too. But I just started to find a little bit more like freedom and solitude in my Senegalese identity, because it just didn't feel oversaturated with a lot of other girls who try to be like me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I kind of feel the same way in my own way, right? And I think ultimately, like, it's just leaning into our authentic self, right? Like, there aren't a lot of people who have a parent or parents from, West Africa in our case, or whatever, and just leaning more into that side of ourselves, right? Because that's who we are. We don't need to be the typical, whatever the typical Black American is in whatever context. Like, we just need to lean into our personal roots, because, like, when you were talking about the whole slavery, Jim Crow thing, I mean, I feel that too, because both my parents born and raised in Ghana, and I feel for the Black Americans who generations of their family have gone through systemic trauma. But, like, at the same time, as much as I care for and love my brothers and sisters who went through that, like, that's not my story in any way, because that's my family can't relate to that. And so I think the more we can maybe lean more into that side of ourselves, just being ourselves, right? Because no one else can be yourself. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. And that kind of brings me to this question about, like, what advice would you give to people who are kind of maybe like you, right? Where you grow up in America and you have at least one parent who is from at least one African immigrant for a parent, but um, you grow up in America, or maybe a Black American urban environment like you did, about what advice would you give to those people about how best to lean more into their authentic self and their culture more?
I would say listen to your parent, especially the African one, because they truly know, like, they truly know the pure and authentic tools to lead a peaceful life. I feel like my dad, part of the reason why he married my mom is because he was so tainted by
Mm,
the plight of Black America.
mm,
And he spent his entire life studying African culture, trying to get back to those roots, And
mm,
he married my mom in an effort to cleanse his bloodline, to bring us closer to the motherland.
mm,
And so that was very intentional for him. And I'm just like, a lot of us are always studying, like, all the bad things that white people had did to us, but I truly feel like to be happy, we don't have to. Well, I'm blessed enough to where I don't have to. I don't want to say blessed enough, because not like they're not blessed, but I really don't. I don't want to spend my whole life, like, searching for what it means to be Black, or searching for, like, that identity. And so for those kids who, if you have an African parent, just lean 100% into that identity, because I feel like deep down, like, Black Americans are also trying to get back to that, but they don't have a direct source in,
mhm,
like, the way that we do.
mm,
When I'm around so many Black Americans who are like, I want to be initiated into the Yoruba culture, and they might be from, like, Nashville, Tennessee. Why are you picking Yoruba? And why are you trying to recruit me? I don't need to be Yoruba. My mom is from Senegal. We
yeah.
already have our own spiritual practices that I can identify. You know what I mean? I don't have to be Ifa or any of these other things. Like, and that's, like, I was talking to my friend yesterday, and she was like, how she's Nigerian. And I'm like, when you become Nigerian? And she was like, oh, I did the 23andMe thing. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, okay. She even got a Nigerian flag in her bio now. Like, okay. But, But I know I know exactly what ethnic groups I am. Like, I'm more than just Senegalese. I'm Tukulor, I'm Sere, and I'm Bambara. You know, those are the ethnic groups of my bloodline.
Yeah.
And so I think diving deep into the ethnic groups as well, I would encourage like all first generation Americans to dive into the ethnic groups. Like, if you, it helps me understand like my mom a lot better. Like the Tukulors and how they, because she's technically Tukulor because her father is Tukulor. They're very like Tukulor centric. Like, if you're not speaking their language, if you're not a part of their culture, they do not mess with you. Like, you are not getting at all. And they also were the ones who brought Islam to Senegal. And they also, like, they forced everyone through, like, killing them, kind of, to, like, become Muslim. And they call them racist, honestly. Like, that's just how you identify them. But it makes sense because my grandpa was in a position of power, and he was a Tukulor man. And the way my mom, like, kind of looks at people, it makes sense. Like, you're Tukulor. But, like, the Bambara people, they're very artistic. Like, they are in Mali as well. They were the ones who, like, built universities and wrote books and made masks and painted, like, did all of these, like, sculptures. And it makes sense. I have that in my blood why I'm an artist, you know, why I like to write, maybe. And then the Sere people are very spiritual, because Sere basically means, like, to be able to see, like, with your sixth sense. And it makes sense why my grandma, who was Sere, she was like a psychic. Like, she can see things that all of us aren't gifted to see. And she got that from her father. And so just knowing your bloodline is a gift. I just told you my friend is on 23andMe. She doesn't know her bloodline, which is so sad. But it's like, if you're able to trace back, like, I can ask my mom, who was my grandpa, who was his father, who was his father, and who was his father, and somebody would be able to know exactly what farm they was on in Mali, because we have Mali in our blood, you know. All of that. And I would for sure not have a baby before you're married. I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah.
Because that definitely is Black American culture.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think for those Black Americans who are trying to tap into their roots, first of all, I respect that. So when I laugh, it's not because I think it's funny or corny, but it's because, you know, we do have a blessing when we're in our shoes, that we do know where our roots come from. Like, you know, my family's from Ghana, but I also know my great grandfather's from Sierra Leone on my dad's side. And so I know I have a whole Sierra Leonean bloodline as well. And so that's, like you said, it's a tremendous blessing, and being able to lean into that more and ask our parents while we have them, right, about all that is so important. I'm wondering, Nabou, the fact that you did grow up in South Central, there's a tension. You probably saw this growing up, but there can be a tension that exists between, like, Africans and Caribbeans and like Black Americans, like, on the other side. I don't know how much of that you saw, but I mean, personally, I saw a lot of that. Like, it seems like there's a wedge that kind of drives, you know, for me, like, I'm all about, like, Black unity and whatnot. But there are, like, narratives on both sides about the other side that makes each side sound like an other. And so the fact that you do have Senegalese roots, but that you know, on your dad's side, you are Black American and you did grow up in an urban kind of environment. Um, how did you maybe see that play out? And how did you maybe perceive it, just kind of knowing your family's background?
I think I experienced it a lot, like, in my own family. Like, I think my mom, she would make comments about Black Americans, and I would get offended, like, because I would consider myself Black. Like, what you mean we? Like, like, what are you talking about? You know, especially when I got pregnant, she called me all types of ghettos, like, just like those Black Americans getting pregnant to get on, like, welfare. Like, she was saying all types of crazy things, because, I mean, I was, like, 18 years old. I can understand why she was upset, but I think that's when I really saw, like, the stereotypes pop out. Like,
yeah.
But then at the same time, I hear, like, stereotypes from my dad's side of the family, you know, about my mom and her culture and things that they say. Like, I feel like there's a lot of, like, tension, because my mom is so secretive, but that can be rubbed the American people the wrong way, because Americans are just so out about everything. So, like, they just love to share everything. So you can ask my mom, like, what school do your kids go to? And she's like, I don't know. Like, what do you mean you don't know? So they would get offended, you know? Or, like, my mom tells me this story about the first time she drove to Vegas with my dad and, like, some of his family members. And they was like, you know, driving to Vegas is a desert. And they was like, this must remind you of Senegal. Like,
oh my God. Oh no.
And my mom was looking at them like, no, it doesn't. Like, we're a coastal city by the beach, like where I'm from. Like, Senegal is not a big desert. It doesn't look like this, you know, but I think, like, the social tensions is very much real, but I never really see it from Senegalese people. Like,
interesting.
I never see us included in the conversations with Caribbean. I always see Nigerians, or, like,
oh, Nigerians are always involved, trust me.
I was gonna say, like, I think the way that Senegalese people carry themselves, they don't really care. Like, they don't care.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah.
You know, but I do know that my mom would say, like, in the shop where she used to work growing up, like, the Belizeans used to come and work, and, like, the tensions between them, or I think that, like, sometimes it could be a lot about, like, maybe beauty standards, I think, come into play when it's, like, between the Caribbeans and the West Africans, like, but I think that, like, we also have to, like, really understand, like, the number that like, white supremacy put on, like, the consciousness of the people. Like, everyone is dealing with their own internal, like, anti-Blackness. You know what I mean? And so I think that a lot of people might be aspiring to be as Eurocentric as possible. And so, like, there's that tension. But then at the same time, like, Africans have their own, when we say that, like, we have a culture, but you don't have a culture, it don't be about, like, we think it's about, like, how we dress, how we cook, and how we talk. But the culture is really, like, about principles. Like, and I think that they be saying, like, we have principles that we live off of, like, deep spiritual principles and values that make us African. And when they come to America and they see an undignified people, that's what makes them say that. And then Black Americans will get offended if you call them undignified, but hip hop culture does not represent dignity to me.
It doesn't. No, you're right. I 100% agree.
It really
trash.
doesn't.
Yeah.
It's so bad, and we're just now talking about it. Like, we're just now, Black Americans themselves are just now waking up to, like, their own, like, mistake.
Yeah.
But we've all been, like, secretly thinking about it for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, like thinking about the lyrics and the music, the images we're seeing, what's kind of amplified uh all these awful messages, and yeah, um I agree 100%. Um so but what do you think can be done to make sure all Black people are coming together more?
That's a good question. I think we have to go within. We have to go within individually to be able to then come together. Like, because we can't come together if we have our own individual issues.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of problems that we have are so deep rooted, like insecurities or traumas or like rage or just unknowingness. Like, we really have to, we need God. Like, and I know that's like a cliche answer, but it's the only answer. I feel like that's what made me change is when I prayed and I prayed. We need to pray. I prayed really, really hard for my purpose, for clarity, for wisdom. And it wasn't until I really understand myself as a human being that I was able to like accept everybody in the world, you know? And when people are rude or mean or racist or just like small minded, it just no longer bothers me anymore.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because like I know that there's good in everyone, and I know that there's nothing that separates us. Like, we're all one with spirit. There's nothing that separates us except for the the origin of our DNA. That's it. That's the reason why we're so different. But like we're all one. Like, there's no difference. Like, our language barriers, okay. Our religious differences, I look at them now, I don't look at them as a thing that separates us. I'm like, wow, your people were so creative. You guys came up with your own way to live a righteous life. And so now, like, that's how I would look at Christians or look at Hindu people. Like, y'all are so creative. Look at y'all food. Look what y'all were able to do with the same ingredients we were able to do with it in Senegal. Like, that's really cool. Those are the spices that y'all chose. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's once you understand yourself, you'll be able to see the humanity in everybody on earth.
Nabu, you mentioned earlier in the conversation that you have land in Senegal, so if you choose to go over there, you can, I guess, develop your property. I guess to this point, have you been to Senegal at all? And
Yes.
how many times have you gone? And what is that? What have those experiences been like?
So the first time I went, I was 10. And then the last time I went, I was 18. So the first time I went was, no. I went when I was 10. I went when I was 13. And I went when I was 18. I totally forgot about that one, that trip. When I was 10, it was with my whole family, like my dad, my mom. And that was like my mom's like return to Africa. Like, she
Like for
had
her
not,
first time back?
yes,
Oh wow.
like since she got married and left.
Mm.
And I was like 10 years at that point because I was born like her first year or so in the United States. So that time was interesting. It was a lot. Like, it was overwhelming. I didn't really know what to expect. I was so young, but I think I had like a lot of emotions that I was harboring because my mama like had told me so much about all these people from her own perspective, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful. And so like I feel like I had like prejudgments for my whole family. And at that time, my grandpa was alive. It was cool hanging around him
Mm-hmm.
because I get to like reference my experience around him in some of the things I do today. Like the way I just like shake my legs all day. I thought it was like a sign of like nervousness or like ADHD or something. But my grandpa, he shake his legs. Like that's one thing I remember about him, just cross and just shaking. And my mama said the same thing. Like my daddy shake his legs. So I don't know if it's genetic or it's cute to be able to pinpoint those things. But
For sure.
I think like the second time I went, the first time we was there was like I think it was for winter vacation. Second time we was there the whole summer vacation for months. And that time I felt like I was never gonna go back to the United States. Like I couldn't even remember the United States anymore. I was just
Oh
so
wow.
like I was just so much in Senegal. I was starting to remember like significant parts of it. Like I just remember being bored, like because at that time we didn't have Wi-Fi or nothing. So like I was too young to understand like you're in Africa, girl, like just go be normal, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was 18 and I went. And at that time my dad had already passed away. And my grandpa passed away the same year. So that's why we had went. And I was older, like I had already started college. And I really just had like a sense of peace there. Like I really understood like the privilege of me being there. Like I remember getting up on the rooftop at my grandma's house and just like people watching and watching people get on and off the bus, walking to the stores, the boutiques, like buy and sell things from each other. And I was like, wow, like I'm really in an all black country. Can you imagine? Like it's only black people here. That's crazy. I didn't even know that's a thing. Cause I
Yeah.
felt like in every space that I'm in America, I always feel like I'm the minority. Like when I'm at work, when I'm at school, when I'm even at the mosque, I'm a minority because it's all these Arabs. Like I just I never felt like I was at home until I was 18 and I was like, damn, like this is Africa. Like I'm African. This is so cool. Like I'm very grateful. Very grateful.
So are you gonna live there at some point?
Yes, I am. I already told my mom. My mom was like, "You'll be crazy to live in Senegal." Like my mom is like, "It's not what you think." Like
That's funny.
my mom thinks I romanticize. My mom is like, "No, like things have changed. It's not the same." Like I don't know. I don't want her point of view to like tarnish mine because like America to me is you'll meet people that you don't trust. You'll meet crime infested areas. Like all of those things exist all over the world. But Senegal, I just feel like has a really rich artistic culture that I want to be a part of. I know a lot of Senegalese journalists, so I feel like I could be a reporter there if I wanted to. Like, I can see myself like building a career there, or not building. My career should already be built before I go there. But you know, just like I know I'm gonna have enough money to where I'll be able to do 6 months in Senegal, 6 months in the United States. You know, the way that I do like LA.
For sure. That's awesome. Yeah, I kind of I've thought about um potentially living in Ghana down the line. You speak of kind of how you already have your own land there, and my family, we're working on um well, really a family home that whether my sister and I, we want to at some point kind of make that pivot, um that option is going to be there down the line, so that's something that intrigues me as well. um
I think you
But
should do it.
no, I have seriously thought about it more, and I just kind of see the way this country is, just especially as I've gotten older, and just our whole conversation about just leaning more into who we are and our culture. And Ghana is who I am, Ghanaian. So getting to I definitely see a phase in my life. I don't think that's right now, but long term, um
Like
I definitely
retire
see
there.
it. What was that?
Like retire there.
Yeah, retire. I mean, definitely, there's going to be some kind of legacy built there for sure. And just knowing, you know, we've talked so much about kind of, uh, our family roots, and my grandfather, like my mom's dad, was like a powerful politician in Ghana. Like he was on the first parliament of Ghana after they gained their independence. Um, from from England, and you know and all the work he did there in terms of shaping what Ghana is today. And I've started reading his book for the first time. And yeah, so it's kind of, I haven't fully flushed it out, but yeah, that's on my mind as well. So
That's
stay
crazy.
tuned. Yeah.
I also wonder, like, if part of the reason why we are in the United States is because we come from like privileged African backgrounds as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of it too, and yeah, and knowing, like, my dad's a pharmacist today, my mom's a dentist. Like my family didn't struggle, like they were good, but at the same time they wanted to, because when you're out there, it's like going to America or going to Europe is the dream, right? And being able to build a life for your kids in these kind of powerful Western countries. And so I know that was a big motivator for my parents, but it's not like, yeah, they didn't necessarily struggle. And yeah, there is a privilege that comes with that. And I think that's part of the reason why I want to go back to, like, giving back to the country that afforded me the opportunity to even have this perspective, right? Because, and I'm even just kind of thinking right now, like, all of this, at least from my mom's side, is because of that grandfather I talked about, because he comes from a tiny ass village in Ghana, like called Jaman. Like I don't think you would even see it on like a Ghana map, but like no one has ever really done anything from this small town. And for him to become like a well-known politician and be able to travel the world, like he got to go over all the world and meet powerful political people, and having my mom and her being able to come here. Um so yeah, all that kind of ties for me back to my desire to want to get back at some point. Yeah. So that
Well,
will
let me
happen
know
at
when
some
you
point.
go.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You know I'm Ghanaian too.
Oh, really?
On my daddy's side, he did his
Okay.
research.
Okay, he did his research too.
And he said that his father's um, lineage was taken from Ghana
Okay.
to Jamaica, and then from Jamaica to Texas.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. That's awesome. Yeah, there's a huge, because I mean, probably in Senegal too, but there are slave castles in Ghana that I've been to when
Mhm.
I've seen it. So like I know just hundreds of thousands of African slaves were taken from Ghana specifically. And so a lot of Black Americans we see today, right, like have roots in Ghana or Senegal, or you know the West Africa just in general. And
Mhm.
so yeah, so that's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
he looks Ghanaian to me too. If you
yeah,
look at him,
okay, okay,
you like, what does
awesome.
Ghanaian look like?
Yeah. No, I know what Ghanaian looks like. Trust me. Like there have been people who've just come up to me and say, "You're from Ghana, aren't you?" Like, and they could be like Nigerian or wherever, Cameroonian, whatever. Like they'll know because we have certain features. Um,
Mhm.
and And just like how I could point out someone who's from Senegal or Nigeria or whatever, like, because you just know, like, their features, their
Do I
nose,
look
their
Senegalese?
cheekbone. You definitely have, yeah, I could see it a little bit for sure. I mean,
My
you're
little
definitely.
brother looks Senegalese.
Oh, does he?
Because
Yeah.
every boy that I meet that's Senegalese look like my brother.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. Awesome. Well, Nabu, want to wind down here. Where can people go online or on social media to learn more about you, to tap in with your work via Essence, or just to kind of support you?
Yes, you can find me on social media at Nabou Ramu. That's my Instagram or Twitter or X. Nabou Ramu. And that's NABOURAMU. I have a link tree as well. That's linktree/Nabou Ramu.
Okay. Awesome. And last question for you. I ask this to my guests at the end of every episode, and it's kind of broad, so bear with me, and you could kind of take it in whatever direction you want. But what is one thing you believe people could do more of to get a step closer to reaching their pinnacle or to maximize their personal potential?
Spirit. My answer is spirit, like God. God is the only way. You know, we didn't make ourselves. We didn't make the sun and the moon, and we're not here by accident. Like sometimes I think when we are on our routines of life, of like being a child, going to school, becoming an adult, finding a job, like we forget that we are souls having a human experience, you know? And that this humanity that we are experiencing right now, that we are embodying, is a learning experience. Like we're on the University of Earth and we're here to learn things. And so we can't let hardships or trials and tribulations deter our spirit. Like all of those things are literally made to make you stronger. Like the universe is never working against you. It's always working for your greater good. And so if you want to reach your highest potential to me is enlightenment. That is literally the highest that you can
Yes.
go.
It's a
Like,
bar, yeah.
like
Fact. Yeah.
it's not about how much money you make, or it's about how many people you make smile. You know, how many people can feel your love, how many people you can bless with the things that you've been blessed with, and how many virtues can you learn? Virtues of courage, of dignity, of respect, and generosity and love. Really, it's just love. You're supposed to operate in a loving spirit, and then use your intelligence to direct that love. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, just like understand that you're gonna die one day. You're gonna die one day, but it won't be your first experience with death. And death is not the end of all. It's like it's something that you go through to get to the other side. And when you go back to the other side, you'll review this lifetime that you just lived, and you will get awards and claps for the things that you've overcome, and you will be rewarded for all of your good deeds. And I think that's like that's my message to everyone, is just like really come to terms with your mortality and then operate a righteous life, because you're not going to be here forever.
That's a beautiful response. Nabou, thank you so much for your time, and all of you listening via YouTube, whether it be via YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Thank you guys for tapping in. Appreciate the support. You guys make it possible for me to do this every week. And if you guys could help me out, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and also follow and rate the show on Apple or Spotify, because that helps me rank higher, which helps me become more visible to more people, and in turn have more impact, which is what this platform, what this show is all about. So thank you all in advance, and otherwise, you guys know the deal. Every other Wednesday, 5 p.m. Central Time is when new episodes come out. So until next time, I'll see you guys soon. All right, peace out.